Welcome to OWNorDisown, where tech decisions are made easy.
Hi, this is Stephen from OWNorDisown. In this video, I'll be doing a first look on the new MSI GE78HX laptop with an i9-13980HX and 175W mobile RTX 4080 graphics. Hidevolution were kind enough to provide one of their retail units for testing, and this video will follow with a more in-depth look and also will compare it to the 2022 MSI GE77HX, which it replaces and has been my daily driver for about 5 months now. Hidevolution have two models. Now it's my model for $3,600 and the RTX 4090 model for $4,000. It's good to see that MSI uses fast DDR5 5600 MHz RAM compared to slower 4800 MHz by some other manufacturers. Dell. The 4080 model has a whopping 64 GB and the 4090 model with 32 GB, which makes my unit more appealing in my opinion. Now both come with a fast 2TB SSD with an open M.2 slot for upgrades. Mine was a Samsung PCI Express Gen 4 model PM9A1 with read speeds of 6600 megabytes per second and write speeds of 4900 megabytes per second. One advantage of buying from a system integrator like Hidevolution is you can configure the laptop as you like it. This is especially useful for MSI laptops because they do cover one of the access screws with a tamper evident label, which can put some people off from opening it up. So you may want to add that second SSD drive. The GE77HX came with a phase change thermal pad on the CPU, and there's no mention if they actually did that on this GE78HX. But to be fair, I had no thermal issues with the CPU really, especially compared to the Alienware M16 at the same wattage. But I did have an issue with Battlefield 2042 when using balance mode and the auto fan. The 4080 would hit the 87-degree thermal limit because the auto fan profile isn't very aggressive, but it is very quiet at 43 decibels, but fails to cool about 145 watts. The 13980HX was fine, as in balance mode it was using about 37 watts, compared to if you use extreme performance mode that uses about 77 watts on the CPU and 155 watts on the GPU. Now if you do use extreme mode with the auto fan, it will ramp up to the same level as if you use the max fan, and that is actually pretty loud at 60 decibels. Now I didn't notice any coil whine, but I did notice that should the 4080 hit 87 degrees, I could hear quite bad audio crackling. At first, I thought it was just a game, but it happened in other maps too. And even when the battle effects were quiet, like when you died, I could still hear it. Now, it wasn't the speakers, because I also experienced it using the headphones. Now, the issue did go away once you got that 4080 cooled down, by increasing the fan speed. Increase the fan speed. Gradually gets less and less. And I must point out that this was the only game I experienced that this occurred, because none of the other games I tested pushed the 4080 to 87 degrees. So if you do use balance mode, I recommend that you create your own fan curve using their software. I think even if you crank it to about 50 decibels, it should be fine. Balance mode would usually give a lower frame rate, but it does depend on the game. Battlefield 2042 saw about a 12% reduction, but Far Cry 6 was much closer at 6%. Now, I also had issues with stuttering and game freezing when I first started my testing. Now, this only occurred in Battlefield 5 and Dead Space Remake. And it may well have been, the latest GPU driver, which by all accounts sucked. But, perhaps something also was downloading in the background, because eventually it did go away and all was good. But I always do, I do all the updates before I start testing, the Windows updates, drivers, BIOS, I do all those updates. So it was a little bit of a puzzle. In general, I would say the frame rates were faster than the Alienware M16 with the i9-13900HX and the same 4080, and cooler with the same watts, and max fan noise was about the same. If you're looking to choose between those two models, I would say that GE78HX is faster out of the box because the M16 CPU is limited to 55 watts unless you unlock that in the BIOS. The GE78HX is definitely cooler, has slightly better speakers, a bit louder at 84 decibels, and have slightly better bass because it does have 4 2-watt woofers and 2 2-watt speakers. Now, audio does come out at the sides at the front, but also at the sides of the keyboard where they have the letters MSI drilled into the speaker grills. Now, the other main difference is the display. The GE78HX 17-inch 16x10 panel is brighter at 426 nits versus 319 nits on the Alienware's 16-inch 16x10 panel, and this does make a difference if you lower the brightness. Both panels have a similar good colour gamut, and one good thing, if you're coming from the GE67HX or the GE77HX, from last year, there are no conflicts with MSI True Colour this time around. Both have fast Windows Hello for logging you in, which I really like, but the GE78HX does not have Advanced Optimus, which is a shame. So you'll have to reboot as you switch between the dedicated GPU mode, hybrid or integrated GPU mode. The M16 has 4 SSD slots compared to only 2 on the GE78HX, and the battery life was an hour longer on the M16. There I got 4 hours compared to 3 hours on the GE78HX, and that was using 50% brightness streaming YouTube. And this was actually also with the GE78HX using integrated GPU mode, and the screen was automatically switching from 240Hz to 60Hz. Now, I did think the RGB lighting is much better on the GE78HX, and it's actually brighter than on the GE77HX. They changed the light bar at the front slightly. You now have individual LED cells that do give it a good look. Also, the MSI logo on the lid can also be lit up. I also like the change to the volume keys. Before you had to press the FN and the arrow keys. Now this time, these are media and max fan keys, plus also you have one that puts an aiming reticule on the screen, which I did found useful. Now, air intakes underneath look good, and I much prefer the standard feet layout compared to the rubber ring which the M16 uses. It does allow for better airflow. Now, the biggest sticking point versus the Alienware M16 is the extra $1,000, and that is a big pill to swallow. Now, I saw no tearing in gameplay on the GE78HX, despite there being no G-Sync, and the ghosting performance was very good. The 13980HX was fast, but not noticeably so compared to the 13900HX, so don't let that influence your decision. As for its size, well, it's not as wide as the 16x9 17.3-inch GE77HX, and it's not that much deeper, and for the same weight, it's actually, a little bit more portable, I would say. Okay, that's my first look. I will be showing more details, the thermals, benchmarks, and a detailed comparison to GE77HX in my next video. So make sure you're subbed up for that. Now after that, I have the GT77HX, the new Ryzen 9 7945HX ASUS ROG Strix 17, and also the Alienware M18 to look at. So thank you for watching. Bye.